just a couple of things. So first of all, really, something that I find quite a lot, and I've spoken to other people about, what do you see most that golfers do wrong in terms of preparing physically or mobility wise for a training session or an event?
Do you mean like a competitive tournament?
So either that or even just a session on the range in terms of how they, maybe the preparation leading up to that, the hour or 2 hours before, like biggest mistakes or things to avoid, really.
I think the biggest thing is, so, when everyone has their idea of how they warm up on the range, meaning, they go up and they start with their shortest club and do so many shots and then just work their way to the longest. And they assume or mistake that that's an adequate warm up. So what I like to incorporate with my players is, some sort of dynamic warm up that is not only going to prep their tissues and from an injury standpoint, but try to get their muscles firing in the right coordinated patterns for actual like proper sequencing, and like things that are going to translate over to a swing as far as mechanics. So even having a resistance band in their bag where they can do some duck walks or side steps on the range to get those glute medials firing for lateral stability. So you think of the people who, sway and slide and have no lateral control of their hips. So just some kind of activity or designed warm up specific to the individual based on the problems that they have in their swing that's going to kind of get them firing on all cylinders, as opposed to just, saying, okay, go hit these balls in this sequence. I know from a golf pro standpoint, because my significant other is a golf pro, that it's really important that they have intent when they go into a practice session. So, when you see a junior just kind of go up and they have it's kind of when you go into a gym and you just walk from each piece of equipment, you have no plan going in. You have no structure, no theme to the workout. How are you going to make adaptation and gains in that kind of environment if you have no structured plan that has an end goal? So I think having a individualized, structured routine that's going to prep your body for the activity or the tournament or the competition, and then 2 is having intent when they go to practice, as far as like what their goals are out of that session, because that's going to everything's going to revolve around that. And then for a tournament, like a competitive setting, you always have to have a consistent routine beforehand. So even when it comes down to things like nutrition, a marathon runner would never, decide to eat oranges before they go out and run a marathon if they've never done that before. Things that subtle are going to, throw off things like blood sugar control, just, how the peaks and valleys of how your energy flows. So consistency as far as routine with like regards to warm up prep. You think of Brooks Koepka who bench presses 250 pounds before every tournament, which sounds bizarre, but it works for him. So it's whatever works for the individual, keep it consistent and go from there.
Cool. And as you mentioned it, and something I'm very keen on is the speed with the juniors. And you mentioned these trainability windows. I guess you're talking about around their sort of peak height, growth spurts. And I've seen you with speed sticks as well. You use those, don't you? Is that right? The super speed?
Not speed sticks specifically, actually. Like I'll incorporate like shaft swings, like just club shafts, like that don't necessarily have a speedometer attached to it. I think that speed sticks have more utility in juniors than actually adults, because often you have to train them differently. So kids, you get their speed window immediately because that's when they have the most neural plasticity. You can deal with all the other stuff at the same time, but you have to get that speed because that's going to be the most trainable part of their game at that point in their life. So, the 12 to 13-year-old window. And in older players, they've got all these dysfunctions and these motor control problems and these muscle imbalances. So I'm like, you have to look at stability, which is just being able to control and handle the physical demands of a golf swing. Strength, which is building the capacity of each of those stability fundamentals. So like once they have that function, then, adding more load. And then you can get to speed, but you're actually going to get speed just from getting them stability and strength. So don't get this 50-something-year-old wailing as hard as he can when he's in the time of his life for degenerative rotator cuff injuries if he doesn't have stability and strength first. I think it's a great warm up for older people, but I don't think it's a be all end all as far as like a implemented protocol.
And I totally agree. I think there's a lot that can be done with speed in the older players before you get just pure how fast can you go with this stick or this club.
For sure.
Yeah, around the, you know, they've got a lot of, like you say, stability issues probably first of all because they're playing at a certain level. And it was, you've answered it already, really, more with the sort of elite junior players. My real question, sort of avoiding injury, because a lot of people with seeing these golfers on TV now and what Shambo's done with his body are thinking it's just speed. What's the best, or what do you recommend in terms of to avoid injury more than anything else? How would you set up for a speed session if that was a thing?
Do you mean like with what demographic? Like
so those that are in that sort of growth spurt type stage.
Oh, for juniors.
For the juniors, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So juniors. Oh my goodness.
Nowhere near any speed sticks or anything like that. So your super speed sticks.
Yeah. Juniors, you can make some really fun training sessions. It's all about sprinting, jumping, changing direction quickly. Agility training is great. Skater jumps, which is like, basically jumping side to side, lateral bounding, anything, involving, box jumps, like explosive things. So it doesn't even have to be golf specific because everyone assumes that golf training has to look like a golf swing. But, even if you had like kickboxing pads and they're punching them as fast as they can, or throwing a ball at the wall and having to catch it, alternating each side, it's anything that's going to try to condition what we call these fast twitch muscle fibers. So if they're just standing there doing, squats are super important for training overall, but if they're just doing slow loaded squats, as their whole training regimen, but they're not getting the explosive stuff, then you're not training the type 2. So honestly, anything that is going to require something that is like 100% effort, low reps, because you want them to be able to put, full energy into that activity, that is just the best thing. Very quick, very, 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 very quick. So you'll see some people online, they might get a junior to slam a medicine ball and then immediately do a lateral bound to the other side. So changing the task very quickly as well. So you might have an exercise that's like, there's like a couple dynamics to it, but the good thing about it is juniors find it fun. Because they're not just standing there having to do 15 deadlifts or, it's never repetitive. You can keep it flowing, keep it going, and you can turn things into games. You can line up pylons across the room and they have to, run or jump and touch each one as fast as they can. Anything you can do creativity wise, you can really translate into speed training from an exciting point of view for them, which is great.